Views expressed by CamaPlan podcast guests may not reflect those of CamaPlan. CamaPlan does not guarantee the accuracy of information provided by guests, nor does it endorse or recommend any individual or organization. CamaPlan is not an investment advisor, CPA, realtor, or attorney. You are encouraged to conduct your own due diligence before making investment choices. For any tax, legal, accounting, investment, or other questions, please consult a specialist. Hi, I'm Michael Duncan, and welcome back to The Road to Financial Freedom. This podcast is brought to you by CamaPlan, a self-directed IRA administrator focused on educating investors on how to grow retirement savings faster through alternative investments. In each episode, we're going to take an in-depth look at the many roads taken to financial freedom and how they differ for each of our guests. Our goal is to help the listeners learn how they can achieve their own financial freedom through the experience and stories of experts that have done just that. Today's guest received his Bachelor of Science degree in economics from UCLA in 2010 before starting his career as an inside sales representative. By being the top sales rep and winning a $50K sales incentive bonus, he used that savings to purchase his first 2-bed, 1-bath condo and learn the importance of having multiple streams of income. Now, through real estate syndication, he has invested in over 600 units in the past 2 years, where he's participated as a general or limited partner. I'm very excited today to welcome Jim Lee to the show. Jim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. I love what I've learned about your story so far, and I'm excited to really dive into it. Obviously, this isn't the way you started, and it's all been within about the last 10 years, having you recently graduated from college. And I'm curious, I guess, to know what sparked your initial interest in, you win this sales bonus. Why did you immediately decide to go into investing and in multifamily real estate?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to have find this job during the 2010 European debt crisis. So back in the day, I'm pretty sure most investors know we just went through the 2008 subprime mortgage crash, followed by the 2010 European debt crisis. So it was really difficult for me to find a job. Out of college, I was actually jobless for a good year and a half during that time, and it was difficult for me to just find any job. I was interviewing for all kinds of jobs, data entry, whatever, you name it. And eventually I got really good at interview that, I learned how to sell myself. And that's how I found inside sales. And, working at LoopNet, which for those that don't know, it's basically Zillow for commercial real estate. I was able to talk to real estate investors, agent, property managers, lenders on a daily basis. And from there, I kind of learned the importance of having multiple streams of income. And that's why I decided to pursue real estate investing.
So the main drive behind it was having the multiple streams of income. Why did you choose? Obviously, just the general knowledge that I'm sure you gained as being an inside sales representative, but why real estate? Why not sports betting, for instance?
Yeah. So again, I think it has a lot to do with me being very persistent, right? Because coming from an Asian background, my parents raised me to always get high education. And after, getting my bachelor degree, my parents saw the struggle and they wanted me to pursue MBA or PhD. And I didn't want to continue to go back to school. I wanted to start making money. I wanted to get some experience. And it just so happened that I ended up in sales, and I ended up working at a commercial real estate company. And that was really, what helped me discover that real estate could be worthwhile looking into. And also, I think I've always had this idea of investing in, when you're young, right? You hear this all the time. It's better to just get started than later. It doesn't matter at what stage you're at, even in your 30s, 40s, just get started, right? Once you get started, then you'll find out you got to take this more serious. You'll start to get educated in the field, and then you'll start to surround yourself with like-minded people as well.
Yeah, I remember back having just graduated from college, or maybe being about to graduate from college. And my mother, she worked for like a retirement company. And, the first thing she told me was like, we're going to go and start, I think it was a Roth IRA for me. Like that was like one of the first things she wanted to do. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not making any money. I just graduated from college, don't have a job yet. And she was like, yeah, but with an extra 5 years, like if you just start 5 years earlier, that's massive. It's just a huge advantage. Especially with, the constant changing of everything. And, we saw obviously in 2008, and then with COVID, we just saw massive changes in everything that we knew and understood. But that's interesting. Did you ever think that you might go back to college, after getting money from investing, or was that just never something that you wanted to pursue again, was higher education?
Yeah, so I would go back to college now for master's to network. Because now I've, after coming out, working as a realtor, working as a syndicator, I finally understood the power of, networking. And, it's your network, your net worth is your network. Your network is your net worth. So I'm pretty sure you heard of that phrase before.
I like it.
Yeah. And so, I think that's the only, I would say that would be the only reason that would motivate me to want to go back to school, is to be able to build more connection and establish a solid relationship long term, so that I can help more people build financial wealth.
That makes a lot of sense. I really enjoyed that. I'm going to use that quote sometime, and I'm going to pretend like I made it up, and then give you credit after the effect wears off. But coming from where you came from, you had a saver's mentality. Can you, I guess, describe what that is, and also what the differences are and how you had to adjust to them in your new career?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in Taiwan with a saver's mentality. In Asian culture, we've been taught if you can't pay for something in cash, you can't afford it. In our mind, debt is slavery and cash is freedom. So that was very difficult for me to overcome that mindset. Because when I had acquired my first real estate building, it was a short sale. I bought it all cash offer, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom condo. Took me a year to close that building. And the mistake was using cash offer, right? Because, after acquiring the building, I realized there's a lot that I don't understand about real estate. And that's why I picked up the Purple Bible, which most people have read, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And in the book, he talks about why would you not use leverage? You get tax benefit, you amplify your returns, all that good stuff. So that's when I had to, change my mindset a little bit and see from the other side of the coin, instead of always thinking, okay, I can't use debt. But then I think it's just more of, I realize that it's more just an education. I just need to be financially educated, because there's good debt and bad debt. You just have to recognize which is bad, which is the credit card debt. You got to pay off the interest so that interest rate doesn't eat your life. And then there's good debt, which, you can use that debt to help you leverage. So leverage that debt to help you make more returns on your investment.
So for the listeners, what exactly do you mean by leverage? As in, like, what's the difference between that and a cash offer?
Yeah, so leverage, it's a very simple concept, right? So let's say, for example, the biggest thing you have to understand is you're using other people's money to make more money. So when you talk about real estate, in simple terms, most people use loan to purchase real estate, right? It's like 80% loan to value. So you're talking about you're only putting down 20% of your own money down to buy a property that's worth 100%, 80% more. So basically, you're getting 80% loan and you're putting down 20%, and you're getting 100% of this property. And the income that this property produce all belongs to you, right? But then you just have to pay off the debt, which is the loan. So in a sense, you're shorting the dollar, right? Because you're using the bank's money, which that amplifies your return overall, because then you're only putting 20% down.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you're getting tax benefit, right, for the mortgage interest rate, right? So the government encouraged you to borrow because the government needs help for people to house more people.
Yeah.
Right. They encourage people to buy real estate so that they can continue to house people and so forth. And because we have an affordability issue. So it's like a partnership, and that's why you get tax benefit for investing in real estate. So those are the leverage I'm talking about. It's essentially, you have to look at it as a partnership, and when you use the good debt, you're helping not only yourself, but you're also helping the renters, the government, and everybody in the community overall.
Yeah, I can understand why that would be a massive adjustment mentality wise. Obviously I did not grow up in an Asian household or with Asian culture. But my mom was always very much of that same mindset of like, if you can't pay for it in cash, then, you probably shouldn't be paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've struggled to do that. I've struggled to adjust to just, life of being an adult and having to sometimes, put things on a credit card or whatever it is. And I cannot imagine having to do that and adjusting that mentality to something as expensive as a house or a condo. So I can only imagine how big of a mindset and adjustment that was. And also the conversations that you have with your parents about it, I'm sure were very fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it literally took them, I would say, a decade for me to prove to them that I know what I'm doing, for them to finally invest in one of my syndication deal.
Oh, that's funny. So that had to be the hardest sell you've ever had to make. And it took 10 years, but you made it. So
yeah, it is one of the hardest sell, but it's also the most rewarding one too, because now that I know if I can change my parents' mindset, because their mindset is a whole different generation, boomers mindset, right? It's totally different. It's too hard. It's sometimes it's so difficult to get them out of that, because they're so used to doing the way they've done it. So to be able to finally help them see the light at the end of the tunnel, and for them to invest in my deal, it definitely made me realize, okay, if I can help them, I can definitely help a lot more people.
Absolutely. So you've had a lot of experience now doing this for as long as you have. What are the differences that you've learned from being an active investor versus a passive investor?
So I got into syndication because I believe wholeheartily, investing passively. And so let me go ahead and explain my definition of active versus passive, which is very straightforward. Active is just like you're in the weeds, you're in it to manage the deal, to do everything from A to Z. So my example would be my first 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom condo. I didn't hire a property manager. I didn't have a system or automation set up. I did everything on my own, which is, find the tenant, run the background check, and get them in, and do the maintenance, collect the rent, everything on my own. And I found out that it was a fatal mistake, because it took up all my time. It's a business, right? You have to treat it as a business if you are going to be actively involved. Whereas passive, you basically invest passively. You give money to an operator, and then they basically, like in a syndication deal, and then they underwrite the deal, find the deal, manage the deal, and sell the deal, and eventually you just make a return on investment passively, and you're not actively involved in making the business decision on a daily basis. Whereas when you go down this path of being a passive investor, you can just focus on being the expert at what you do, a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and make a lot of money there. So focus your energy and time on there, instead of always thinking about, what is my real estate doing? How is my real estate portfolio doing? Right. So that's active versus passive.
So I guess what have you learned in terms of like what you prefer, and like I'm assuming that you're mostly at this point a passive investor. Do you ever like miss being actively involved in some of your properties, or do you prefer just kind of collecting the checks as they come?
Yeah, so I think this is my reality. I don't know if it's for everyone, but I think most people start off as active, right? Because, chances are we all are eager to do our first deal and, get right in, take some action, make some mistake and learn from it. And so for, when we start off as active, we have to, because we kind of have to understand what it's like to be a landlord before we can delegate all these tasks to property managers and hold them accountable, right? Because if you don't know what you're doing, then you can't really hold the property manager accountable for what it is you're expecting them to do. Especially if you want them to run this like a business. So I think that's one thing, is that I think we're always actively going to be involved, but it just depends on how much you're able to transfer all the active investment into passive investment. Because at the end of the day, we all just want to be financially free and not have to worry and be super active involved. We want to be able to travel. We want to be able to do, anything, that you want to do in life, and not be tied down to, okay, is my property doing well today, or is that tenant having a maintenance issue? If you already built the system and automation, all that will take care of itself.
Couldn't agree more. I know that it probably requires, if I were in your shoes, it would probably take me a decent amount of time to be able to really release the reins and just let things operate on their own, or delegate and whatever. Because that's something I've always had trouble with. But obviously, when you get to the other side and you're able to do that, I can only imagine how rewarding it is to be able to just see those checks come in. So what's your mission and your vision for your real estate syndication?
Yeah, so my vision and vision for real estate syndication my mission is just to educate and bring value in the form of syndication, because in my opinion, it's the safest and fastest track to reach the reality of financial freedom. My vision is to make sure that everyone who's part of Formosa investing will improve their financial life tenfold, so they can focus on reaching their dreams and not their next paycheck.
What is Formosa?
Formosa is a name given by the Portuguese. So I'm originally from Taiwan, and before Taiwan was discovered, before Taiwan was named Taiwan, Portuguese discovered back in 1500, and they named it Formosa. And Formosa means the beautiful island. Ever since then, Taiwanese took that as something they're proud of, and when a Taiwanese sees my logo, they recognize that brand, and that's the niche that I'm targeting.
How does it represent your business?
So far, I've noticed a lot of people that I've been able to attract, whether it's through phone calls, whether it's through podcasts, I get a lot of Taiwanese investors, and that's how it represents my business. Is that, Formosa, it's the brand. It's to basically, I want to be able to help the people that came from Taiwan, and anybody really, but my niche is really targeting this specific group of type of people, ages from 30 to 50 years old, have high net worth, have problems with tax problems, and all kinds of investors that have that's going through this phase and going through these stages where I can be able to help them through syndication.
You're able to be their beautiful island.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I think that's really awesome. So what has it? So over the years, since that first 50K came in and you were able to buy that first condo, you've been investing in yourself more so than you've even been investing in real estate. I mean, that's the reality of it. Do you feel that it's paid off? And if so, how has it paid off over the years?
Yeah, that's great. I actually haven't invested in myself until recently. I would say about 2-3 years ago. Only because my mindset back then is all about just, okay, what can I get myself into? I have this amount of cash sitting there. Can I get into the stock market? Can I get into gold and silver, real estate, whatever, right? I never thought in my 20s, it never crossed my mind to invest in myself. And And I realized that once I started to make a career out of being a realtor, once I moved from being a W-2 employee to being an entrepreneur, that's when the real mindset had shift, and that's when I started reading a lot of books and listening to a bunch of podcasts. And in the end, I realized that how important it is to invest in yourself. And what I mean by that is, once I educated myself enough during lockdown, that's when I started studying syndication,
Okay.
exploring other avenues to make money through real estate because I couldn't host open house as a realtor.
Yeah.
And then that's when I realized, okay, I've educated myself enough. What's the next step? Next step would just be to go out there, put myself out there and network and, find like-minded people. And eventually, once I started doing that, I realized there's mastermind groups, where you can join for anywhere between 10,000 to 50,000 a year. And I end up joining, one of these mastermind groups, and I realized over time, as you continue to invest in yourself, whether it's educating yourself or putting yourself in a mastermind group, and all this stuff is going to help you excel so much quicker. It's going to help you compress time frame, so to speak, right? If you want to reach your goal, and you think you're giving yourself a year or 2 years, by doing all the stuff that I just told you, you can compress that time frame to probably less or even 1/3 of the time and accomplish your goal that much faster, through partnerships, through relationships, through, just by continuing to pour money and investing in yourself instead of always thinking like, okay, if I invest in this thing, is it going to generate a cash flow for me?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I think it absolutely makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
It just seems to me like that's the best investment you can make. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you're not investing in yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, then, how far is everything else really going to go,
Right. And it's really difficult to measure that, because you're not getting a number back in return, right?
Yeah.
But in the long run, it's going to pay off. It's going to pay dividends because the partnerships you create is going to be, worth 10 times, 100 times more than, extra $200 cash flow per month.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And so as listeners of the podcast know, I love asking people not about, some of their greatest successes, but actually some of their greatest failures, mistakes they've made along the way. I'm a big believer that you learn more by making a mistake and learning how to fix it than you ever do when you succeed in something. So I was wondering if you could possibly share, an experience or something that's happened along the way that, was a bump in the road and what you were able to take away from that. And if you feel that that mistake was a large part of, the reason that you got to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll use an example I mentioned earlier, which is when I bought my condo for all cash offer.
Okay.
So that was a big mistake to me, and because all my money is tied into that condo, I basically just put all my eggs in one basket, which is what Warren Buffett suggested not to do, right?
Very true.
And so that's one thing. And the other thing is it was difficult for me to pull that money out. You would think that I would qualify for a line of credit or, be able to refinance at some point, but it was difficult because I was switching from job to job. I was getting laid off during that time. So my money was basically just stuck there. And then on top of that, the third thing that, what's so bad about having all the money in there is, I didn't have it set up as an LLC. And so
Okay.
I was a big target, and I didn't know about this. And on top of that, when you have 100% of equity in the property, people can easily find out, right? And so that becomes a huge liability. Whereas if I only had, if I only own 20% of the equity, then I might not be such a big target on my back. So those are, I just listed three things that why you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, and I mean it's clear that it made an impact on you and the way you approach this entire, industry and this entire job.
Right. But you learn by making these mistakes, right? You realize, okay, what did I get myself into? And that's why
I mean,
education is so important before you do anything.
Yep. Because again, you're learning mostly from people that have made mistakes, and that's what you're learning. You're learning how to come back from mistakes or what mistakes you can avoid. and that way you don't have to make them. Which again, that's why I like to ask this question. And so finally, and you've touched on this a little bit throughout the podcast, and I like that it sounds as if it's very important to you, because obviously it's the name of the podcast, The Road to Financial Freedom. And I was wondering what financial freedom means to you.
Well, financial freedom just means what I told you about my vision earlier. I feel like all of us have a purpose to be here on this planet, right? And I feel like it's more than just the daily grind and working paycheck to paycheck. I think that there's got to be more to your life, and you got to find your purpose, to find things that you're going to do passionately to achieve that fulfillment. And I think that's the most important part about being financially free, is that you can focus on reaching whatever you're passionate about and what your dreams are about. And so you don't have to worry about the next paycheck. You can just really be out there and serve the world for what you do best, instead of being tied down to do something that you're not happy with.
I think that's very well said. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So Jim, please, before we say goodbye, could you please tell the listeners where to find you, how they can get in contact with you? Feel free to plug yourself, and obviously all of your links will be in the description of this episode, but please feel free to plug yourself and tell the listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, they can find me at formosainvesting.com. On my website, there's a quick 20-page read ebook that they can download for free. Basically just talks about all the mistakes I made as a real estate investor, so you don't have to make them.
I like it.
And then they can also check me out on all the social media links, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Formosa Investing.
Awesome. Jim, thank you so much for coming on. I had a wonderful time talking to you. I learned a lot, and I think the listeners are going to enjoy this as well. And I'm looking forward to hopefully talking to you in the future.
All right. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Of course. And as always, thanks for listening to The Road to Financial Freedom. If you enjoyed the show, please support the podcast by remembering to rate, review, and subscribe. You can keep up to date with us on Facebook or Instagram at Road to Financial Freedom Podcast. Thanks again, and I will see you next time. If you like what you're hearing on The Road to Financial Freedom and want to learn more about self-directed IRAs and 401ks, click the link in the description to download a free toolkit with everything you need to get started.